you fly with me? Won't 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 you fly with me?
Hey, hey, hey. What is up, my friends? You are listening and watching to, wow, that was awkward, Feedback and Friends. And this is going to be a little bit different than normal today because, you know, it's winter time. And as you've noticed, if you, maybe you haven't noticed because you have lives outside of us, we're only here every 2 weeks right now because we found that, like, in the winter, people seem to be kind of busier, making a little less tunes. But we're still here. We're still experimenting with formats. We are still messing around with what we want to do with content, you name it. So I would really love to continuously hear your input. Like, what do you want to see from us? Obviously, we will return with next year's championships, but we have so many good ideas. And so today is going to be a little bit more of a testing ground. I've been recently talking to a lot of people about how to set up your room. And so Nadia and I thought that today it would be super fun maybe to talk about, like, different ways that we geek out. And for me personally, I'm going to talk a little bit on how to calibrate your room, okay? Like, no matter what you have, and even if you're broke, because I have built all of the stuff around me from being broke. And by the way, you may notice it looks a little bit of a shambles. That is because I am slowly preparing to move back to Europe permanently. So I've been packing up a lot of stuff, and, you know, I was a little bit self-conscious today about it, but I thought, you know what, this is real. Like, how many tutorials do you see where people are like, look at my perfect studio, which I've clearly never even been in because everything has the plastic on it. And that's not really how it is, right? Like, we have messy studios. We have stuff that we've patched together. Right now I have a bunch of paperworks and stuff over there because I'm packing up all my files. I've got my coffee cup. Like, this is real. This is the real stuff. So we are going to do feedback. We are going to play your tunes, but we are also going to do some tech talk. And so I would like to say hello, as always, to the amazing Nathaniel Wyvern. How are you, my dear?
I'm pretty good, thank you. What about yourself?
I am doing awesome. I'm just kind of getting ready to leave, which which is always a weird feeling. I've been in this studio since 2014. So this one has been with me for a while, and the sound treatment, which is kind of willy-nilly right now, all of that I actually brought from even before that. I can't even remember, but I believe I either made it. Did I make it in San Francisco? Either way, yeah, because I moved a bunch of stuff. So this has been a long time running, and I've done all of this on an almost zero budget. So I'm really stoked to just kind of check out like your setup, Natty, because you're going to talk, I think, a little bit more specifically about, like, I'm interested in you showing people how the cool things that you've set up for streaming and the way that you've hacked your cams. There's a lot of fun stuff to show people. So we'll play a few tracks. We'll get going. And then we're going to probably take a break to talk about all of this crazy
And
stuff.
show everyone my messy bedroom.
And your messy bedroom. So up first tonight, we have a longtime favorite contributor, Moldy Soul. Always love your stuff, Moldy Soul. So what did Moldy Soul have to say about specific feedback that we're looking for?
Took a slower track that I've played on here before and reworked into a more upbeat tune with a good friend of mine. You guys are very hard to please with bass, so any feedback on general balance and mixing, do the sounds gel, or is there anything you notice that sticks out?
Nadia, your mic is coming in so hot today. I have you turned down and you sound a little distorting. So maybe if you want to lean,
I'll turn it down a little bit.
Lean down on that. I'm like going crazy with how hot your mic is. So, yeah, now playing. Mr. Moldy Soul shouts out, you're watching Feedback and Friends with ill-esha and Nathaniel. super mesmerizing, my friend. I love this. This is such a good groove, and as people in the chat are saying, this goes super hard. I love this. I mean, I think that the only thing I would say is that really good main groove that you have, like the bass line and the melody, maybe to play off the melody of that bass line by enhancing it with like different top end synths as the track goes on, because it's like such a good groove, but the main bass sort of synth sound is so dominant that I think that the texture sort of remains the same throughout because of that. So maybe like you can have something that's playing the same line, but just like up high, just doing like weird stuff that just really enforces your attention to the riff, but provides a texture. That would be my suggestion. But other than that, like I would play this out. I was seriously like, that started me off well today. What sayest thou, Nathaniel? You're muted, and it's not me. Uh-oh.
That should be working.
There
Sorry,
you go.
I was changing my levels. That should be less crap.
Yeah, that's better.
Less distorted now. Sorry. I just didn't want to fuck it up while I was live anyway. Oh no, I swear I'm bad. I'm a terrible person. Twitch, don't sue me. Anyway, they reminded me of like a sort of a tower gauntlet kind of thing. That was kind of the vibe where they're working away at levels and there's bad guys in every level, but they're badasses, so it's all fine. It's just really cool and, you know, a very classy piece, that one. But also I like the sense of mystery. You know, there's a sort of, they don't know what's waiting for them around every corner kind of thing going on.
Right. Cool. Any other suggestions?
I think I agree with your sentiment about the bass. It's sort of like you know you'd want it not only to play it straight every time as well, but to delay some of the timing in that repetition. So it's like the bass is going out do 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 do. See, you know that's already providing the concrete so that you can cantilever some of your repetitions over. And achieve the same effect, but in a really cool way. And you can do things like tempo automation on or a more stabby synth above it. So it's like, you know, stretch it out and mutate it that way. I think that could be really cool in general. I mean, it's very close to done. I think very, very, very close.
Yeah, I would totally. I mean, it's definitely playable, outable. Now it's just about like those little tiny details to sort of keep the structure going while maintaining the groove. Cool. All right. Next up, we have Sunny Skies. What's up with Sunny Skies? Another regular.
So, this track is called Waltz Rock, and they said I got live drums in, changed up the pacing of the song quite a bit with this latest version. Also, the last time I submitted this, I recorded scratch vocals. I decided to throw them here for the sake of it. Note they are as recorded. I haven't edited them in any way. There's also a spot where I peak the mic. They're mostly first take. So, what should I do? I know zilch about mixing live drums. Should I sidechain the kick? What kind of EQ I'm planning on do? And do the vocals even fit the track? Or should I get a female vocalist for it? So that's the best summary. It's a massive wall of text. So sorry, Sunny.
Right.
I'll
just read the wall of text, and maybe we can type some of it to people as we're playing the track so that they know what they're giving feedback on too. How about that? Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, Sunny Skies. Let's check it out.
This is my kingdom to know, and it's time I had a voice. I can lead the armies forward, but all you ever say is smile, dear, and wave, and I'm
Okay. Ooh. Very, very, very epic. Maybe a little bit like strong on the bass. I'm feeling it. I got my sub pack today, and it's a little hot, like in that it's sort of like the upper mids of the bass. So I think you could look at that possibly, like sculpt that a little bit. And then as for the vocal question, as others are saying in the chat, the biggest problem is your vocal post-processing, right? So I don't think you need to replace yourself with a female vocalist. I think you have a cool vocal idea, and I think that your voice can handle the melody. But your processing is really going to make the difference. Right now, it just sounds very like a thin, singular vocal. You've got very strong guitars, a very strong kind of just overall track. So you really need to put some processing on the vocals. I would recommend doing like double, quadruple. Sometimes I do like 20 takes. Okay. And then I stack and stack and stack. And sometimes I take those stacks and I put them way down. So like it sounds like a single vocal, but it's just very subtly being thickened by this stacks of takes. So yeah, it's a vocal sketch. Exactly. So I think that once you take that further with processing and play around, like I would record a lot of takes, especially for the hook, and try what I just said. Try stacking them really, really subtly in the background so that they just provide a thickness to your main vocal. And then you can also do doubles and ad libs that are more noticeable. But I'm just strictly talking in like a thickening of your voice to stand out way. Also, just a challenge for a male vocal. I'm very familiar with this because although I am a woman, I have a very low vocal register for a female voice range, and I can often like sing male vocal exercises. So the problem with this kind of frequency range is that it's like the upper mid to mid upper. So it's kind of the range that everything is in, you know? And there's a reason why, like this breathy EDM style vocal of women is so popular in EDM. I mean, it's a trend for a few reasons, but one of it is that's a really easy frequency to cut through. Like if you just sing like this, it's going to cut over top of everything because it's kind of high and breathy and up there. But if you have a medium tone, sort of mid-range vocal note, you're going to have a challenge balancing it out. So I would suggest when you go to do the finals, mess around with some mid-side EQ, play around with 360-degree EQing, right? Cut a hole in the middle for your voice to sit. Bump it up on the sides with the synths. Play around with stuff like that. So this is kind of preemptive since you haven't done anything yet. But I think that because this is a vocal song and because the backing stuff is meant to frame the vocal, you know, rather than be a sort of a standalone, weird, glitchy track, I would honestly suggest doing your vocals next and really processing and playing with layers because that can truly change the way that you produce the rest of the track. And in this case, I think the vocal is king and you need to build stuff around that. So that's what I would say. What do you think, Nat?
And you asked to mix vocals. I'll do it again. Damn it. I keep saying the cursed phrase.
Everybody drink.
I think you're right with starting with the vocals next. I also found it's something that I've been thinking a lot on lately is once you have the idea that a song is requiring vocals, the next stage of songwriting is taking into account how you might process said vocals. Like, you know, like even the sort of takes you do, it's not just do it the same way every time, you know, and just do it over and over again and stack it just for the sake of it. Like you can be deliberate about it if you have an idea of what effect you want. But you kind of have to make those decisions early as part of the writing process because it controls the energy levels of your track.
Right.
And this track suffers a lot from being the same energy level the entire way through. And I feel like there are moments where, one, you should try and not have vocals, let your instrumental shine a bit, but also don't focus on the guitar all the time. There's like your e piano and a few other ambient sounds kicking about in there, and they all need their space too. Something to sort of have a standout moment of airiness and atmosphere that will really sort of provide catharsis to your listener.
Mm, true. Very good advice. Sweet. Well, Sunny Skies, I think you know what you have to do. Next up, we have who is this?
This is Sleepy Muse. They are in the chat right now.
Sleepy Muse.
They
Sorry,
are
it was
go
hard to
by
tell from the titles who it was. All right, Sleepy Muse. What's up with them?
overall impression. Still a work in progress. Thinking of adding vocals to go along with the bell melody. Thoughts on the vocal chop hook? Is it too repetitive?
Is it too okay? Is it too repetitive? Got it. And we are gonna go to Sleepy Muse. Oh, that was shorter than I expected. I really enjoyed that actually. Do you want to go first? That just caught me off guard.
It did caught me off guard as well. So where's the rest of the song? Darn it! Yeah. I'm going a bit crazy tonight, I guess. Is the bell melody too repetitive? No, but it would be in another 8 bars. So you're
Yeah.
gonna also have to find some way to start mutating it. Like right now, as it is with the unfinished structure, what you've got here is fine. The bass could do with a little bit more interesting timbre. I can't
Timbre?
pronounce any timbre.
Timbre
Timbre, blah blah
bello.
blah blah. Timbral quality, because right now it's just very smooth and round and unobtrusive. It's just sort of sitting there in the back, kind of doing its own thing. When I think there's enough room in your track to go more interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure entirely how that would look or sound in this case, but because you could go 100 different ways with that kind of processing. It could be just change how you're automating it within the synth, but also it could be what you chuck on top of it and automate around that.
Yeah. I think it caught me off guard because I was really into the vibe. Like it was a lovely vibe and it was doing its job, which was kind of like hypnotizing me. Like I just got so into it and I was kind of like my brain was ready for that to be a slow, long build. So I think having it cut off after a minute and a half was much more jarring than like say like a spazzy dubstep track or something because it's got that long haul feeling about it. Like I really want to hear it extend and build and go a bit longer. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny because like it's always this case, right? Like people who are worried about being too repetitive or something are actually making something really good, and then people who think that they've made the best thing of all time are just like killing a 4-bar splice loop. It's just like was Dunning Kruger versus imposter syndrome. That would be a boxing
There's a
match.
spectrum between the two.
That would be a boxing match I would watch. Dunning-Kruger versus Imposter.
You
Yeah.
get this skinny guy on one side who's like, I can win this! I'm amazing! And then this really buff guy who has seen things, he's like, I don't know, this guy seems tough.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's not too repetitive at all, and it's a good hook, and just I think that like you can't just repeat that section from here on, you can take turns, lay things out, add little tweaks, but like that is a solid idea, and I endorse this. Yeah. Who is up next? What a spicy we'll play one more from the queue, and then we're going to geek out for a bit with y'all. Natty,
My
who's next?
favorite 10-minute techno. I've sent you the. I
You
think.
have?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I thought I did, but no, I guess I got distracted by the nice spells. It's 10-minute techno next, by the way.
Okay, we're not playing. Well, we're going to talk over some of it. So, Morgan, if
there's this abstract type, yeah.
If there's like a specific part you want us to play, let us know, because otherwise we're just going to play the first couple minutes and then talk over it. So, yeah, 10 minutes is a little bit long for this show. So I'm going to start it.
Created from a demo I recorded from Reactor to be a sound demo for a filter I've been working on, and I'm probably going to make a Eurorack module of. The lead and bass were recorded live, and the chords, all the drums, and some of automation were added later.
Right. Okay. All right, so what I find really interesting is that, like, I'm interested, like, this is a really, really cool thing. It's supposed to be a demo of a filter, but like, I really was enjoying the track. There is a lot going on though, obviously. There's a lot of watery, resonant, kind of mid-rangey stuff. Natty, what are you thinking about this? You're muted.
I'm wondering if it's
Oh,
possible
I
to
know.
incorporate more. I shouldn't be.
No, you're good. You're good. Sorry.
I'm wondering whether it should be possible to incorporate more stereo manipulation in this patch that you're building, because you got all this interesting stuff happening at the side with these sort of arcs, but I mean, when they're that far away from the center, it's hard to actually focus on them. Like, it's just physically hard to actually comprehend what's going on at that side in a specific manner. And you can hear them right now under my speaking, like where the filters are opening out, and it's a really nice sound. But you're so fixated on the acid base that they're getting ignored. That, you know, so maybe they need to switch places. Have the acid come out to the edges and bring the trance into the middle, and use that as like part of your long evolving call and response of this techno track.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you have like such a good central motif, like a really catchy riff, that you could make a proper playable version of this that has like more stuff going on, and then, you know, have sections like this that are just pure demos. But I think I would like to hear it in the context of a few more elements as well, especially if it was a demo, to have a few versions of that. What do you think about that, Maddie?
I mean, the one benefit as well, if you're willing to just make a lot of different versions and emphasis, is you might like all of them, and then you got 5 different versions you can release that play in different contexts, and that's always cool. It's something I don't do enough of, to be honest. Like, I tend to get stuck on one version of the idea and say, yep, that's it, that's the true version, and then never do any other versions of it.
Well,
Which...
yeah, these could be like oh, I love the way this filter is sounding. Like, it's actually really, like, I'm enjoying just hearing it like go in and out. You know, it's great. It's super great. It just, I think could use more form as like a final demo, and like some cleaning up, some side chaining, things like that. You know what I mean?
yeah, it definitely needs to obviously tidy up, but
yeah, really, really cool
Very
track. We got 6 minutes through it, and I'm still liking it. So good job. Shouts out, thank you, Crypto Hashes, for your generous donation. We really appreciate you. So we're gonna jump Q to you next. And what is there a comment or a feedback specific request?
just general reception.
All right, and let's check it out. aka Crypto Hashes. Wow, pre-mix and master. So a few things on this. Most interesting, I think, is something that Shalop said in the chat that the mix, the second half of it, like in this drop part, is way better than the first half, and definitely I agree. And I think the reason that is because it becomes more minimal. And a lot of the time, when something becomes more minimal, you have fewer elements. And if those elements are good standalone, it's more likely that they'll come together. So I think probably in the first half of your mix, you have a few things going on. I do notice there are some notes that are technically in key, but I feel like might be interesting to try moving with the root note of the chord sometimes instead. Like, for instance, you stay on this kind of low single note for a while, even though the chords are shifting, and maybe changing that up would make it sound a little less discordant, because there are moments where just the way some of the melodies are crossing paths are not necessarily ideal. So I think you can like tweak a little bit of things like that. And also transitions, another thing that people were saying in the chat, like some of the sections seemed a little bit disjointed, and it can be tricky to make transitions. I really, 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 really enjoy resampling for this reason. Like sometimes what I'll do is I'll go into a later part of the track and I'll resample like the entire track, or the entire track except the bass and the drums, something like that. And then I'll like chop it up and do things to it just the way that people would sample old records, and then I'll make those little things into little transitions or hints that I'll drop earlier in the track. So think about like resampling yourself, or just like recalling different parts of the track to show the listener how it's meant to connect together. So I would kind of look at that. And then just melodically, this is supposed to be melodic house. Is funny. I was making a lot of jokes with my friend Leah Luna, who's also in a house arena, and we both said melodic house is kind of a title for techno snobs who don't want to admit that they like trance. So
Oh, you're gonna get in trouble for that one.
I kind of feel that way. Not gonna lie. So, but that being said, I think with trance, with melodic anything, the melodies, right? It's in the title here, melodic house. Your melodies need to be a little bit better in some places, like some of the piano melodies, the accents in the end. I think you could push yourself a little bit more, and sometimes it's easy to just fall into the same patterns. I say this all the time. Try using like MIDI scale kind of type suggestive plugins just to shake your own ideas up a little bit and give yourself like a different pathway. So I think that you could play around a little bit with some of your melodies, because they are supposed to be the focus of this genre, if that's what you're going for. But I do like the main sort of middle drop area. I think that part sounds clean, and I think you've got a lot of cool elements. So that's my monologue. How about you, Nathaniel?
Taking notes in my head as the track progressed. What intro highlighted that your kick is kind of wrong for the track you're trying to make. It's too crispy and big, and sort of like you're slapping a table, when it needs to be more round and subtle, because your bass is sort of providing that upper harmonics already at this point. The other thing, I agree with your sentiment on the melodies and how they need to be worked on, because this track sounds like another track that I know of. I can't remember the name of it, is the problem right now, because a lot of these sort of electronic tracks I listen to sometimes, they have weird names that don't you connect to anything. But there's this track I know it's in my Spotify library that it sounds, it's like, it's not the same melody, but because your melody is so sparse, you're kind of just making my brain fill in the gaps and say, oh, it's the same song, really. Which means that you haven't really done enough yet with the melody to define this song on its own terms. And yeah, that's, I mean, I don't know whether that's a problem, but at the same time, I would want everyone to aim for a little bit better than just the bare minimum.
Yeah, agreed.
I'd say that's not completely unfair, I'd hope. Your individual sound choices are good. I think the actual sounds, your taste and your sound is solid. It's just the lack of connective tissue between the sections is hurting the arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just transitions, it's referencing. It's like, having one section that says, yes, I am part of the same song, thank you. Because I repeated this little element that you only heard like 2 times 32 bars ago.
Yeah, for sure. And that being said, like I know, like we're being picky because you're saying this is pre-mix and master. We want you to be in like your final form, right? And I just think that you got to go back and massage the transitions a bit so that people appreciate the sections instead of being startled by them. Because there's nothing wrong with them in themselves. It's just a bit of weaving, my friend, a little bit of weaving. Shouts out to
We got a great hot take here from Moldy Soul.
Oh, what did Moldy Soul say? What was the hot take?
Also, techno is just house produced wrong.
Yes, that. Shouts out to Rags, who just donated $5 and said, sing a line from Broken Windows or make Nathaniel freestyle. Well, Rags, we love you, so we might do both. But this is a good segue. We are going to do a little bit of tech talk today, and I am going to bring you into my room. Look at that. Ooh, this is my nice camera. So my room, it makes my room look a little bit better than how it actually looks, which is pretty chaotic and messy, right? So I was meeting with La Mendoza the other day, and she had gotten some new, like, those nano leaf LED panels. She had gotten those panels.
Oh, they're so expensive.
I know, but she got them for her studio, and she was like, check out my studio. It looks dope. And I kind of got mad at her because I was like, bro, you haven't treated your studio. You haven't said you know what would make your studio dope is being treated, And I just kind of called her out on it. And she's like my little sister, so we have this relationship. And she was like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And I thought, you know what? Like, this is something that a lot of people don't think about because you think, oh, maybe I have cheap speakers. Maybe I just don't have a lot of money. There's no point. Or even worse, I got some egg cartons I'm going to put on the wall. I've got just some foam. Right? And people don't realize that there's a lot more that you can do. So I just kind of wanted to show you in my little tech moment a few tips about what I did to make my room sound better that was very cheap and how you can do it too. So it's basically a multi-step process. The first thing to figure out is measuring your room to figure out width and length. And once you take those measurements, you can actually put it into this So this is a speaker placement calculator. This is the one that I like to use, and it's based on Ethan Weiner's Bear Trap's kind of audio acoustic theory. I don't want to get too deep into the audio engineering nerdery. I'll let you do that yourself, but it's noaudiophile.com/speakercalc. So once you have the measurements, you can put them in, and it will just do all the calculations for you and tell you the perfect place to put your speakers in the room. So first off, you always want to be sitting along the longest wall. So I'm going to show you my room in a second, but if this square is my room, this is like my desk. This is how I'm facing. So you're facing the short wall and you have the long wall, right? So if we're going to go back here, you can see, I'm going to try moving my camera around a bit. So I have this room. It's not perfect by any means, right? It's got like a window on one side and then it has a door on the other side. So if I just move, see if I can do this without totally messing up. Okay, so back there.
Smooth panning.
Back behind me, that curtain is covering my ISO booth. That's where I do all my recording. And then you have some more panels over there. And then to the side, this is my door, where normally I have a lot more cables hanging, but I'm in the middle of packing up. So basically, you can see that the long wall is to my side, right? And I'm sitting along this short wall. Let me see if I can pan around so you can actually see my computer. Right here. And here's a window right behind me. Great, right? Oh, now I messed it up. So let's go down here. I really need a camera person for this. But let me show you now what I did. So I calculated the measurement. Let's say it's about 20 by 10, okay? And I put it into this calculator. And this 38% rule. This is like how far you're supposed to be sitting back in the room. You are not supposed to, by any circumstance, sit halfway exactly in the middle of a room, because standing waves and phase, there's a lot of issues that happen when you evenly sit at a certain point in the measurements of a room that create these nodes that you don't want. So 38% is supposed to be, the magic thing. So you punch it in and it'll tell you, let's just, I'm too lazy to actually put up what this is, but let's just go like this. So whatever you say the room is, you see now it's telling you this is the amount of space between your speakers. This is the distance from your head to the main wall. This is how far the speaker should be from the main wall, and this is from the side wall. So this is actually giving you 4 really detailed measurements that you can use to place your speakers. And then this is like a backup option if this option is just really inconvenient. Like if you have features in your room where this just sucks, these are some alternatives. And you can try all of these too. And they even give you like square room options. Square rooms are the worst. Try not to use a square room if you can, but if you have no choice, what are you going to do? So first you measure, okay? And then you put the speakers in this place. And you have 2 options from here. If you have a room calibration software like I do, you can then measure. Let me just bring up my SonarWorks so you can see that. So this SonarWorks is actually right now it's calibrating my headphones, because obviously I'm listening to y'all on my headphones, so I want to hear what's most accurate. But this will actually take a reading of your room or your headphones, right? And figure out where the nodes are. So if you're calibrating your room, you obviously want the speaker version of this, and you measure around it, and that could also give you an idea for how much treatment you need, because this is the third part of my equation, right? There's like room calibration, there's speaker placement, and then there's acoustic treatment, right? So how do you figure out what you need? Well, if you look at this, that's my room. It's pretty crazy. Let me just take off all this stuff. This is like this giant base node, and this is just something that you can't avoid, because even with all this treatment, even with all this stuff, there are just going to be phase nodes in my room, and there are going to be things, and you can actually see, it's interesting, like the different response from my left speaker and my right speaker, and that's because my right speaker bounces off a window, and my left speaker kind of goes to this panel right behind me. So if you measure it before you put any treatment, that could also give you an idea of like, oh wow, I have some like bass spikes. Maybe I need to tame the bass a little bit more. But you could also just go to making your own acoustic treatment. So it's much cheaper to do this. Like if you're on a budget, like I always have been my whole life, you don't actually want to spend $80, $100 a panel, right? So 2 types of panels to make. Panels on my wall. Sorry, I can't point backwards. There. These panels on my wall, these thin ones, these are what I would call mid-range traps. And they're really simple. You basically make a 2x4 frame, just like Home Depot basic materials, thin wood, and you build the frame to fit around pieces of Owens Corning rock wool fiberglass. This is the real stuff, okay?
Inflation.
So it looks like this. You got to wear gloves. It's going to get in everything and anything that you own. You probably want to wear a respirator if you're really sensitive, because it is fiberglass, yo. I actually used 705. This is 703. This is the most common one, but 705 is like even more hardcore. And basically a single one of these, you build a frame around it and you cover it. Don't laugh. Actually, you can laugh all you want because I laugh. This fabric that I used is actually weed control fabric. It's for like landscaping so that the weeds don't grow through it. But I chose it, well, because it's cheap. It's the cheapest fabric I could have gotten, but it's porous. So you have to pick a fabric to coat these fiberglass things that has a little bit of holes in it, to absorb the sound into the fiberglass. But obviously you wanted to keep the fiberglass in and out of your lungs. So all I did for making these wall panels, just a sheet of this Owens Corning, a frame out of wood, And you see, and then you can make all these different styles yourself. And it's on Amazon, you buy a single one of these panels for $80. You can order like 6 of these sheets for $80. So you can see that it's a lot cheaper, and that's why I'm able to have so many of them. And the last thing I want to show you about the way that I treated my room are, you see this panel, these white panels behind me in the corner. These are my base traps. So there are 2 things that you need to make worthwhile base traps. The first is physical space, and the second is density. So each one of these base traps in each corner, they are 2 layers of the Owens Corning covered in fabric and then leaned at an angle. So there's like a triangle of space behind each one of these. And there's like about like this much space in the wall. So space, density, it soaks it up. And this is how I have balanced my room. So just to recap the steps, use a room calculator after measuring your room. Use calibration software before and after if possible, but at least after. And make your own acoustic treatment. I hope you found that very informative. Natty, I'm going to switch tactics to you. What would you like to show people today?
Start by showing my terrible room. It's one of the worst setups you could possibly have. Like, I don't think that room calculator would even know what to do with it. Let's see. Should work if I switch to this. There we go. And I'll
Super
switch
up
camera
close.
to the
While you're doing
super
that,
up close footage. There we go. So,
hold on. Sleepy Muses just asked if we have opinion on the SonarWorks headphone calibration. Well, that's what I'm using. I'm just using the speaker edition. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. Like, that's what I was showing you, is the calibration with SonarWorks, and it's made a huge difference in my mixes. That was the only thing I mixed with when I was in Spain for 3 years with no speakers. Sorry, go on, Nathaniel. Your blanket
it's okay.
is great.
So, Rich, my blanket is great. So, I'm currently using my smartphone here as a camera because I have a wireless setup with Droid Cam OBS. Anyway, so this is my new tech corner. It used to be, as that photo was thing, I smashed that monitor, which is currently sitting on the floor here. It used to be in that corner. There's a stupid alcove thing. Like, I basically had to sacrifice a little space for this new razor. It's terrible. So you got 2 alcoves, one on this side and one on this side, and then you've got a window, which right now has got the curtains and the blackout blind down, the door, and this stupid ass curved wall. Aren't I lucky? I have to try and treat that.
Oof. Yeah, you got a lot of walls. I mean, you don't have a lot of space. And I forgot to mention that the foam stuff, the light egg carton foam, it's not totally useless. Like, you might have seen that I do have some like behind me there. It's just only good for like soaking up high end. So if you put a bunch of that foam up on your walls, it could be too much. It could just like swallow all your highs. But I do think, Nathaniel, that because your room is such a kind of weird shape, that it's like, it's not so square, right? You have a lot of like weird little nooks and corners. So if anything for you, I would just try to, even that little foam here and there, because you probably have a lot of high-end reflections, but I would say probably less base nodes since you have such a weird shape going on.
Although I find if it's loud enough, that entire room can actually vibrate. It resonates the bass across the entire room that I'm sure the neighbors are very impressed with.
Yeah, I just don't think you even have room for bass traps is the problem. You could maybe, you know what you could do is you could build like shelving in the corners that's multi-purpose, that holds your stuff, that acts as a bass trap because it's angled in the corner and it's dense with actual things. So I guess that would be my suggestion, is like, when you have a small space, see if you can multi-purpose. Like, if you need to store a bunch of stuff, see if you can't create a corner sort of plinth out of it. I think that's the right word. And like yeah, you know what I mean, Natty? Like, I think what you're doing is good. Like putting stuff in the corners and just soaking up, because you just think about your reflections.
It's really annoying as well. Like, this wardrobe, if it was just ever so slightly narrower, I'd be able to shove it entirely in the alcove.
Mm,
But it's not. And also, it's like, do you realize how expensive wardrobes are?
it's true. Sometimes they have lions and witches in them. Can get quite pricey.
And it's like it's getting to the point where I actually need loads of new furniture. I mean, that stupid chest of drawers thing, it's actually fallen to bits. And yes, there's a lot of mess because I've been executing this move since the broken monitor displayed on there since Thursday last week, and I haven't finished yet.
Can you tell us
um,
more about your
it's
like mobile phone kind of setup? Because I think that's the most unique thing about what you're doing.
So what I have is an app on my phones called, and it works on any Android or iOS device for that matter, called DroidCam OBS. Right now, for the main camera for this stream, I have my Sony Xperia Mark One, One Mark Three, on a tripod. It uses a lot of battery power, so you have to keep it charged in some ways. Right now, I've got it connected to the mains using just a standard USB power delivery compatible thingy. And I have used this in other circumstances. If you don't have access to mains, a power bank that's also USB PD compatible will work just fine. I'm actually filming you like this on my old smartphone, my Oppo. Same app. That's another thing about Android apps and iOS apps. You purchase it once, you get to install it on all your devices. They can't stop you. So it's actually somewhat more open in some regards than, say, a lot of Windows apps. Like I just repurchased Voicemeeter Potato, which I use for audio routing on my computers. And, it's like
It's actually called Potato.
this. This is the most advanced version of Voicemeeter. It's called Potato. So they got Voicemeeter Banana, and then Voicemeeter Potato.
It's like
It's great. We have to pay per seat. Like every device you install it on, and you want to have the timer removed for whenever it prompts you to donate. It's per device. You can't just buy a blanket license. While smartphones and stuff, that's not the norm. The norm is you buy it once, and unless it's got a subscription component, you keep it forever.
Yeah.
So the other thing with this, while I'm running these wirelessly, they can operate off of USB. Like you don't have to go via Wi-Fi, but that's what I'm using because I like having it obviously untethered to allow us to do crazy stuff like move around.
Right.
It's quite handy because you can control it remotely too. So like my other camera, if I switch back to it,
I like Natty's hand transition. It's
there
like
we go.
fade to flesh.
Sorry, that was a massive. But the other thing you can do is actually control the zoom and stuff remotely. So right now I have this dock. It's effectively just a simple URL that as long as you're on the same network, it will work. And it controls zoom. I can turn the flash on and off, change the white balance and the focus. And right now I've got that running inside OBS as like a docked thing. It's quite handy. I can actually probably show that here because I'm running everything via OBS already. So as you can see here, I've got a screen share up. I was at least semi-prepared for this. But yeah, you get all these controls, and it changes the front so I could switch to the back camera. It's not obviously a very nice view because it's a curtain, but you can do that remotely.
Very cool.
Just on whatever. So yeah, that's kind of my setup's still in an evolutionary phase because I keep breaking things or changing things.
That's what we're
I broke my
about.
Novation keyboard.
That's what we are so about. Oh my God. We're here to try new tech, new beta testing, new everything. I'm so excited. Thank you for that, Natty.
The poor key.
Oh.
It's so cute. Like I dropped my keyboard and I broke the key and I haven't had time to fix it yet.
Oh no. I'm so excited. Thank you for that. We got Schlop up next. What's up, Schlop? It's good to have you back on the show. I always enjoy it. What is up with the Sarah dub?
Deep one I made on my debut EP coming this month. This one is most raw still, but I want to release it as a single next week. Yikes! Give me your worst. And then he gave us a little love heart.
Aw, love you, bud. Oh man, just fire all the time. This guy makes heaters, makes his own tie-dye shirts, makes music. What don't you do, Schlop? What don't you do? I love all these
Gardening,
little
perhaps?
sound effects, textures, storytelling. It's really, really, really fun.
Let's get out of here.
I do think that the ending needs to have a little bit more of a tail, but it's a really cool ending, and yeah, it's definitely ready to come out. Like, it sounds super good and foresty and lovely and festivally and all the things. How do you feel as a never festival gone or word maker upper person?
I'm definitely a word maker upper person. To me, sort of music is also sort of soundtracky in some ways. It really does convey a sense of a place and a space and a time. I find it interesting as well. The comments going asking about whether it was has it used in Eastern music theory. A lot of deep dub and more ambient music, like, you know, because it is kind of ambient. Yes, it has a beat, but it's sort of making you zone out and meditative. Because there's always so much micro tension, slight atonalities, that instantly sort of pivots it towards, it's not necessarily deliberately trying to use Middle Eastern music theory, but they kind of got there first when it came to appreciating those qualities in music.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know?
Oh, geez.
In some ways, it's Yeah, they're the OGs, and now us over here in the West with our weird EDM in the last 20, 30 years. We're playing catch up.
Well,
So it's,
especially
you know,
EDM. They're like, there's 5 notes in this melody. What is this? What kind of black magic is this? Yeah, EDM is not really known for its music
exactly.
theater in general.
um, So yeah, Schlop is saying it's just an A flat minor, but yeah, I kind of see what you mean. Who is it? It's, yeah, Mark Corona. They were saying asking about that question. I see what you mean, but I think it's more of a happenstance. Just this is kind of the vibe that you get in deep dub, and it's a good thing. It's actually makes it quite distinct and it's less poppy, and I can appreciate less pop right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened to people who write pop music, but I feel like they've lost their minds.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I definitely have. Yeah, I thought that a while ago. They analyzed, like I've said this before, but they analyzed all the timbres of the popular songs now, and there's like such little variance compared to the pop songs of the 70s. It's crazy. We are definitely degrading into idiocracy, but this show gives me faith. Like the music that you all send in is so cool. And, you know, it's like the tension when I'm waiting for Natty to send me the next thing in the queue. It's like
Sorry,
I'm
I
on the
was
edge of
zoned
my
out. It
seat.
was.
I think next up is Akasu. Was that right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Akasu, and what's up with Akasu? How they doing? Who are they? Have they been on the show
They
before?
didn't leave a comment. I'm pretty sure this is the first time they submitted, but maybe I'm wrong and they've just changed their name because people do that a lot too.
Fair enough. Well, we will listen
But I
and
mean,
just see what we think. How about that?
mystery time.
I love the irony that I just finished saying that there's like so little music theory in EDM, and then like this is the track that we get because that was like an explosion of music theory in my face. As Moldy Soul just said, like a glitch hop on crack. Yeah, this is like super amazing, and I think even more amazing is just how many things that you manage to fit into like a fairly fast tempo and pace. Like, a lot of the time you can't have detail like that because it just gets too much, and it is a lot, but it's really well done. Like just very very interesting theory wise, technically wise, arrangement wise. Yeah, this is some high level dance music right here. Natty.
I feel like I agree with who is it? Schwab? What's the comment here? Schwab. There you go. Shalom said, "Find the groove, and this will be some absolute next level stuff." That kind of captures what my feeling with the track is. Everything you've got going on is fantastic and really interesting and intricate, but there's points where I feel like you're trying to do too much at once. Those breakdowns, you're trying to go really ham with the piano and your melodics, and also really ham with your drums at the same time. And it's sort of giving the track a feeling like you're trying to rush all your ideas. I'd make the track a little bit longer and just give those some space so that they don't compete with each other so much as terms of ideas. Um, it's odd because technically nothing's wrong. It's giving me this feeling like I'm having a heart attack
It's a lot.
when you've got all this slick jazz.
It's a lot, and the thing is,
And,
I didn't want to
yeah,
say that because I think that people really do have different goals with music, and there are definitely like the same sort of people that got into like prog rock and math rock and stuff. They would just eat this stuff for breakfast. They would love it. But I think, yeah, for the average concert goer, it could be a little much, and you could benefit. The way that I like to view it is instead of compromising what you want to do, just do different versions. So like have this as like the true cut, and then have like a basic bitch version. Like a version that has the elements and the essentials and the motif, and then has like a little bit more relaxed of a pace, maybe takes turns at the focus, just so the simple people can enjoy you too. But I would never tell you to compromise your vision, because I think that it's a lot for most people, but like for like ADHD people like me, I'm just fine with it. And yeah, it's perfect as a feeling in itself. So, as Schlop says, I just want some space. I want to enjoy the composition instead of feeling like my head is spinning. So, yeah, have the space out version and have like the high energy version, because it's a great idea and it's really, really well executed. Super good.
So, next up, we have So I Thought.
Okay.
My attempt at making lo-fi house. Any feedback would be appreciated. So we're going from jazzy, crazy, complextro, glitchy, whatever that was, to lo-fi house. It's certainly a change up.
Well, yeah, we all know house is just techno done wrong. So I'm just going to make things up for the rest of this show. Like very bad out of context quotes. Hopefully somebody will just clip them all together and just cancel me one day. maybe had a teaser of that in the intro because it's a really, really nice element. It makes me want to turn it back up and keep listening, right? Really, really cool. I do think with the pads, they're really beautiful, but especially for like the first 2 minutes of the track, I wanted to hear them move a little bit more, even if it was just like a slight. I'm really, really loving these new types of plugins that come out that are like distortions, but with effects chains like thermal and rift and stuff like that. And you don't have to use them in an extreme way. You can use very gentle versions of them, but then you can like do modulations on them. You can be like LFOing an effect, and then you can slowly automate it over the course of the track just to give you this like textural variation. So I would really mess around with changing that up, and maybe even like side chaining it just a little bit to the percussion so that it just gently pulses, because it just sort of sits there and it floats. But it would be nice, and I'm not saying like severe side chain, although that could be interesting too, but just very gentle, letting the percussion sort of pop over top of it. That's sort of where I would go with it. And for lo-fi, Moldy Soul basically said what I was going to say about like tape saturation and all these different plugins. But very important, I've said this a lot of times, but I'll keep saying it. You have to get clean before you can get dirty. So, go into your mix and be surgical. Go clean up all like the little muddiness, the little mid-range. There is a little bit of muddiness, I think, that's sort of coming through in between my sub pack and my headphones. So go in and play detective and remove everything until it's super clean. Then you can start adding more back. You can add, like, I use like things like Kramer tape delay or RC20. Just make sure when you use these plugins to sort of automate them, because something with the RC20 is like it'll just keep going and going and going. And there are moments where like maybe it can, even the saturation in the crackle can breathe, where you can pull it back. So you can automate that stuff too. So I thought is saying I had more sidechain on the pad, but I didn't like the pumping. Yeah, you don't have to do it even so it's noticeable. It's really with sidechain, it's critical that you have access in whichever way you're doing it to envelope shape, right? And you can do this on a compressor with attack, release, and knee together. You can also do this with some really great different plugins. A lot of people use different things. I use this Duck Buddy, which is a Max for Live Ableton device by DJ Slink. And it just something that allows you to be precise in the shape of your sidechain, because then you can draw it so it's almost invisible, but still has an effect. I really think that shaping a sidechain is an underrated thing. Moldy Cell says subtle rate modulation on a 50-50 tremolo can sometimes jazz up a static pad, not all the time, but at peak times. Exactly, just super subtle, gentle movements so that we appreciate that pad as much as it deserves, Natty.
I did it again. It's a bad habit. I thought said I had more sidechain on the pad, but didn't like the pumping. Part of that is likely your ratio on your sidechain compressor is too hot.
That could be it as well, and the threshold.
It's like, and the threshold, and just play around with those variables a little bit. You can dial back your sidechain effectiveness a smidge, and that should stop the obvious, really overt pumping effect. This is the thing as well. Is like we go going about techniques, but it's also just sometimes I think people need to remember to go into their plugins and just sit there and listen to what they're doing. Don't go in with an idea of mixing. Do a session where you just say, okay, today I'm going to just mess around with my compressor because I want to just really instinctively understand what it's doing. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to have somebody say, oh, the attack does this and the decay does that and the threshold does this. But until you get into the habit of really listening for what it's doing, you don't subconsciously start dealing with it in a way that fits a workflow that's creative.
Mm.
It's like if you're drawing, you can have all the theory of drawing thrown at you, but until you understand how the pencils that you like feels, you can't really draw to your best ability.
Nice metaphor, bruh.
Bruh.
It's very interesting. Today I'm like the monologuer. You're being much more concise. I guess we got to change it up. I mean, Nathan Vandenberg is next. How's it going?
Yeah,
Nathan?
thank you for your donation, Nathan.
Woo, Nathan, it's your birthday. Seriously, this is a very interesting looking whip, so I'm interested in his comments.
I've been working on a few tracks for my submission for the AEMA. It's a production academy on the highest level in the Netherlands. Only 20 people get accepted each year, so this track needs to be perfect. Please, all the feedback would be great you can possibly give. It's going to be way longer, but the drop is still in scaffolding, so I will not send that part.
Oh, and I'm supposed to tell you that this donation is specifically for you to have a way to store your cables and manage them better. So, don't worry.
Kissing my room.
Oh, God. All right.
I haven't even shown you the bomb site that's behind there yet.
Now that, my friends, is an outro. Well done. Well done on that. Nathan was saying that all of the sound design is done by him. That is so clean. And again, like wearing the sub pack, it really gives you an like when that resonance between the kick and the sub is out of balance, it's very intense. And in this one, it's so pleasurably clean, and yet it's like still hitting me in like the back of my chest where I want to feel it, and like low down as well. So it's yeah. I mean, again, like it's hard for me. I can't like say anything artistic about this because for me it gets a little repetitive in the main groove, but I know that this progressive style is much more based around repetition. And I think that your outro and your sound design are absolutely epic. So like really, really well played, really clean, great mixing. Natty, what did you think?
First, good luck with your entry to this production school. That sounds interesting. I'm not sure what sort of requirements they look for in that kind of thing.
Do you need to go to production school? Do you actually need that?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? But I mean, I keep saying, I mean, I'm sorry. I need to get a jar to put coins in every time I say that. As far as feedback goes, I think that outro is actually not an outro at all, based on the description. He said that he was adding another like drop, and but he wasn't finished the scaffolding, so he didn't add it.
Well, whatever. Breakdown.
That leaves like yeah, it's a like you know, as a breakdown, it still functions appropriately though. Like the fact that it could be a breakdown or outro is very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the piece of advice we just tell everyone. If you want a good outro and you don't know how to make them, how do you make your breakdowns? Go from there.
Well, I mean, it's the same kind of concept. Like you're creating a dynamic point of reflection, right? It's a change of state. So, I mean, I think that was great for me as an outro. Like, it could also be a breakdown. I can see how he could sort of like, I like how it sort of dissolves into sort of ambience. So it could like undissolve, it could like reassemble itself in that kind of chaos back into a beat. That would be really cool. But also makes a great outro. What can I say? Yeah. So,
We have a surprise guest.
oh, is our surprise guest here?
I say surprise. I told everyone earlier that he'd be coming, but yeah, I could see him in the chat room.
All right, let me see. Oh, it says
Hey,
I gotta change the title. That's the only
you're
thing.
Alexandra now. You're
You're not
Alexandra now.
Alexandra.
Sorry.
Let me. I mean, how could you not want to be Alexandra? Sorry. Let me just update that. Welcome to our favorite Stigma. I think I spelled that right. I just did it without looking.
Yep.
Oh yeah, how you doing today?
Guys for being so late.
Yes.
But I'm here now. I'm here now.
Woo! It's good to see. So, yeah. What? I'm just thinking of a random question to ask you off the bat since you've been here before. Do you have any favorite new plugins lately? We were talking about room setup. I
Ooh.
also want to know about your room setup, but favorite new plugin, if any.
Favorite new plugin, if any. Let's see. I love. This is newer for me. I wouldn't say like I didn't get it. It's probably 6 months or so that I've been using it. Fresh Air is a free plugin that is absolutely bonkers good. It adds so much excitement on the higher and mid ranges that I absolutely love. I love it on vocals. It's really good on vocals. It's great on orchestral stems as well.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Fresh Air, and I keep forgetting to install it. But you are like the fifth person to tell me about it, so I might have to do it. And yeah, second question. I don't know if you were back when we were talking about room setup. Oh, Natty, you're so adorable right now. But
It
yeah,
looks so comfortable.
what's your mixing setup, and are there
So
yeah.
I am in I mean, I am now in a different room than I was before. So there's no treatment in this room. I came down to this area or this room like 3-4 weeks ago. So it's brand new still. Just haven't had the time. I've got my wife's computer back here for when we're in a gaming mood and we can come down and play some games and stuff. But I do have my two. Let's see if I can get my camera here. So I got my two KRK rockets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have anything too fancy. Got my Akai here that I use. I have my APC 40 that helps me interact with Ableton pretty well. And just like dog included
Cool.
in the studio.
Amazing.
And then my interface is the UR 440 or 44 by Steinberg, which I really like. I had a lot of trouble finding a good interface that I was pleased with, and that one was the right price, the right number of in and outs. So nothing too fancy. I mean, all my stuff is on the machine. To be honest, most of the stuff that I'm messing around with, I know a lot of people are hardware gurus, and I try to keep it really simple. I like to just get straight to the, I my process is so probably generic and cliche, but I like open Ableton and open a serum patch and just start fiddling to produce. Like that's just kind of my process.
Hey, it doesn't matter what you use. It's not the tools, it's the results. So, and that was like what I was trying to show people with room treatment today. Like I built all of this on like, under a couple $100 for all the treatment and just, I got a SonarWorks educational discount, so I got it for like $49 or something. The headphone edition's pretty cheap. Yeah. So it's I try to I like people's humble setups because it doesn't matter, like you can do anything with anything, but if you know how to measure your speakers and place them, it's just like it'll make things better for you in the end.
Yeah, I do have I have like the triangulation pinned down for the monitors at least, but it is really interesting because I mean you always think when you go, there's been times where I've walked into a room and been into another person's studio space and be like, this is not treated well. I can hear it in their sound. I can hear it like into what we're listening right now. Or you can walk into a room that's treated really well and you can say, oh, that's great. And the way to get around that obviously is like, I mean, headphones still aren't as good as studio monitors in my opinion. But I mean, having a good, if you don't have the ability to create a space, like getting a nice pair of headphones, especially if you're able to do open ear headphones, that can give you a lot more of a studio emulation. So you can hear that sound wrap around the back and create kind of that duality. That's going to help a lot. But having things figured out, like something as simple as like, oh, my speaker should be aligned to a sweet spot. I mean, it's something that a lot of new producers don't really know. That can be really, really helpful to look into. I do have like some foam core and stuff in my garage that I really just freaking install in here and help. And there's a lot of space that I want to break up because this room is a big rectangle.
Yep.
And that's not great, especially because it's a lot deeper over that direction than it is the other direction. So it creates a lot of weird sounds. And I can already tell being in this room versus the old room, like this is not as good audio wise, but it's better for everyone else living here. So it's just
well, for sure.
things you got to figure out.
We talked about this when you were in your meeting earlier. You're doing the right thing, obviously, like facing the short wall, and now it's just like putting stuff in the corners, like bass traps to soak it up, and then maybe some mids on the sides, but not really too difficult. And like you said, too, headphones with calibration software are like, have been a lifesaver for me. And I still find that, I always check the mix in my headphones anyways. Like you got to check in a bunch of places. Rags has a 2-part question for you, Stasis. Are you wearing the mask just because you feel like it, or is it part of your artist-producer presentation? Also, do you feel that anonymity, mysterious vibes is still a feasible tool for creating curiosity in prospective audiences?
Great questions. I love those questions. Okay, so let me dive into this for a second. So the mask is a character. It's not so much the anonymity. I don't really care. I used to care more about the anonymity, and I had this whole plan of creating for PR purposes of releasing music under a few different aliases, and then having those aliases like get into beef with each other online and stuff, and creating all of this hype. I've kind of moved past that idea just because like it is a really fun idea, but it's still cheap, and I hate cheap PR now. I've kind of grown out of that. I feel like the mask now is story, and what I mean by that is Stasis Stigma has a story. He's being Stasis Stigma, was created in a lab at a government facility, and there's this whole arc of things that have happened there. And then my group project, Spatter, is an acronym that stands for Spencer and the Robot. And it's like hundreds of years in the future. And there's a concept album released under that. And the robot is Stasis Stigma. So there's like, it's not like, oh, I just put a big mouse head on my face because I didn't want people to see my face. It's a lot more like, well, I have this character that I have all these story and lore associated with that I am really passionate about.
Very cool. Great answer. Great questions. Great answers.
So the second part of that is the curiosity. I don't think that anonymity or like just creating curiosity is good enough for audiences, but I am a huge believer in story and lore. I think that creates connection.
Very agreed. Story and lore. Next we have Samuel Seafeld, SV5, and it says, "I made a slow rave song." Any other comments, Natty, that Nitty wanted to add?
Head check ability to rave to. Also, if my frequency is still muddy, can you let me know, because I can't really tell myself.
Okay. Will do. right, Samuel, I'm going to start talking a little sooner than normal because this is a penalty we do on the show when things get a little bit repetitive. So I need more from your song. It comes in, it's got a good solid groove, but I think you got to just have more going on, you know? Like Stasis, I'm going to let you weigh in on this, but I personally feel it needs a little bit less repetition, you know?
Yeah, I do like the vibe a lot. I do. I love like that kind of. I always call it floppy concrete because I had a loop back when I very first got into producing. Like when I was on Acid Pro, we were talking about this on the chat the other day, but I had a loop called floppy concrete that was like kind of that acidy kind of thing that's going on in this track. And I love that sound. It's so nostalgic for me, and it's really fun. But with this track, there's definitely some variation that you need. I would definitely look at song structure and pull up a reference track. I know I'm a broken record when it comes to reference tracks, but find a track like yours that you enjoy and mimic, not like everything that they do in the song, but like where there's transitions, there's a reason there's a transition there because it's time to introduce a new concept. So I would definitely look at transitioning into some other ideas here and some more development on the sound. I don't think it sounds too muddy, personally, but there is some kind of harshness in the dun 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 dun, the high kind of arpy sound that you've got going on there. That's a pretty sharp tone that I would look at. Maybe doling down a little bit or adding a distortion to kind of spread out the frequencies instead of having like it sounded like there was just like one spike on each frequency that it was hitting those tones.
Nat?
Dun, 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 dun. It's too obvious. Like it's playing directly into where the chords would sit if they were playing solid chords. It's just a standard arc that's just playing the same notes. I think it could do with more interesting harmonic variety as well. Not just changing the sound design, but changing the timing a little bit and changing how many steps that it's actually taking to make a melody. Because dun 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 dun, you hear it often enough and you'll feel like you're going insane more than actually something that feels like a natural expression of intent.
Yeah, not only is it repetitive, it's kind of just like a triad of like the 1, 3, 5, so it's a little bit tiring.
I would look at maybe it could just be one additional chord change, chord progression in there. Dun 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 dun. Like something as simple as that shift. If you do it every other bar, like that could be huge in making that song more palatable over a longer period of time.
Fair, yeah.
Also, Nathaniel, you definitely do look like a grandpa about to tell their story of the War of 1812. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
In my day,
Nathaniel reading
men were real men. I've actually
stream.
up. This is now I've got fixed myself. I can actually start doing that.
Show us your musket.
Everything. I actually probably do know somebody with a musket.
Oh, I do want to shout out to Dreadnought is in the chat, and he's the other half of Spatter.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fun that he's on. But
wicked.
Talented dude.
Nice.
He's the Spencer in Spencer and the Robot. So, yeah.
Nice to have you.
Actual name Spencer.
Welcome to the show. Actual name, yeah, real identity. So
Actual name Spencer.
I was just I don't have much to add on top of what you both said. It's just like I really think that tweaking the melody, like I said about the last melody, is when the focus is melody, the focus needs to be melody. In the gallery of obvious things that need to be said, like you just really need to finesse that, because I think like it has a really good groove and a balance. So work on that, and then let's move on to Donna, is it Donna Music? I'm not. It's funny. Like the
They're in
user
the chat as well.
is M Cardona,
It's
and
Cardona.
I just keep reading it as
Mm.
Mercadona because that's like this big supermarket in Spain that I'd always go to. So I just keep reading Mercadona, but I know that that's not what it is. What's up with that? Is there a specific comment on feedback that they wanted?
Wondering how it sounds, the arrangement and any other thoughts. I have the arrangement down, I think. The song is too short without a second part of the second drop, so I have been experimenting with another melody. I haven't done much production on the verse and chorus, and I don't plan on finishing that until the drop feels good. It's still not mixed, aside of some compression on the melody and such.
Oh, is this your grandpa 1812? Fabulous.
In the movie, Some Like It Hot, there's one of my favorite lines of all time is, "What's with that accent? Nobody talks like that."
All right.
This is great.
The thing about you is that right now I can't think of anyone but you now. And I always wanna be around, but I feel like you don't know me sometimes. So I'm around and nobody cares. Why is that the way it goes now? And I know that you got someone else. Why is that the way it goes now? Yeah, frigid, and your touch on me so frigid, and your lips when you leave so wicked. With me you've become so frigid, yeah, frigid. So frigid. This thing that we do is so one-sided. I can see attention is divided. Signals leave me feeling so misguided. Gotta stop and ask myself what I did. You're around and nobody cares. Why is that the way it goes now? And I know that you got someone else. Why is that the way it goes now? Yeah, frigid, when you touch on me so frigid, and your lips when you leave so wicked. With me it becomes so frigid, yeah, frigid. What I did. So frigid.
Whoa. Yeah, I think like people are saying like the drop is missing some energy. For me, I felt like at some parts the snare actually disappeared and the kick like I don't know. When I have that moment like this where I'm like I can't put my finger on it, it's usually over compression of certain things. So I almost feel like maybe you should go back and take a look because like it's like your drums are like not actually pumping out at me in the way that they want. Like it's not that the sounds are bad, it's like I don't feel that like speaker push and pull feeling. So I feel like you're missing some dynamic range. And I'm going to let our guest comment more on that, but I just wanted to say that my other thing, and this is a personal opinion, you know, disclaimer like everything on the show, but the lyrics, the thing about like I had to like maybe this is an American thing too, but like when somebody calls someone frigid, it's always like a disgruntled guy because a girl won't sleep with him. So it's just like, hey, so frigid, bro. She was totally frigid. So like every time he says that, I'm kind of like, bruh. So I don't know. I mean, it's just like it's kind of like a pejorative slang. So I'm not sure who wrote this or where it comes from, but it's almost like the person didn't speak English as a first language or something. Because I don't think that that's a lyrical choice that you would make as I think even in UK people might still do they use that in the UK, Natty?
It's not particularly common, no.
All
I
right,
mean, it's
maybe
like,
maybe it's
I
just
mean,
an American thing.
there are similar terms to being cold and
Like
icy,
like
and generally
frigid is
just
a woman who
uh,
won't sleep with you.
I have to say,
yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's like aged out and like no
I
one.
don't think I'm that much younger than you, Lisa. Or I might even be a little older than you. Who knows?
I don't know.
Are
But
you 53? Then you'll definitely be
I'm
old. Say
not
Sigma's 53. No,
53.
he's saying he's older.
I
He's
okay,
older.
okay, but
We'll have to compare notes after, but um, I well, as far as the vocabulary, I think that's kind of like the what I got from the song was like the cold shoulder thing, like too cool for you, kind of vibe. But I could totally see like that being like a like if frigid was in your circles, someone who stays. Oh, there it is. There it is. Well, then yeah, there might be you might want to look at changing that up on the lyrics. But I mean, you got the lyrics that you got. I do like the vibe of the song. The uh, the drop for me, the drop lacked syncopation. The bass and the kick and the snare all hit at the same time, uh, and so it was just kind of like. I mean, it's obviously not hard style, but that's the thing I don't like about hard style is like the lack of syncopation in a drop. And so, and this is again all personal opinion for me, but I would have loved to have a bass line that was more complementary as opposed to right in sync with the drum patterns. Um, I also thought that there was the again I do this all the time, so maybe I'm just more aware of it on myself all the time. But did I insult somebody with the hard style? I'm so sorry. Um, but the high tones during the drop, the arp was a little too loud for my taste. And then the first time that the frigid came in, I would have loved like a breakdown to kind of create more of anticipation of the build and the drop. Um, but it was kind of just more of the same, even though the vocal line had changed drastically from what it was doing before. And I like music that complements the vocals a little bit more. This is all personal opinion.
Yeah, of course. Natty, did you feel sufficiently frigid after listening to this song?
Do you feel interested in abstaining after
Grandpa,
that?
Grandpa, do you feel like abstaining from sexual intercourse?
What is your opinion about
Oh,
abstaining at this time?
abstention. Oh, that's actually a good point, though. Is it deliberate to make an upbeat, dancey song asking someone what the fuck is wrong with them? Because that's what it's effectively doing,
Natty,
Why
you're
won't you sleep
so
with me?
uncut right now. What is going on with you today? There are children in the
It's
world.
like, why won't
You
you
like
sleep
dichotomy,
with me?
though?
Is the obviously the slang term where that frigid is meant to represent here, and it seems to be that's what the vocalist was intending when they recorded their loops. But the song doesn't really feel like the instrumental doesn't match that tone. It's sort of okay, we're dancing. This doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well,
And
sometimes
then they're
I don't
saying something
know.
that's
Yeah.
insulting.
I
It's
do like
not.
dichotomy a lot, personally.
Well, I feel like that's not deliberate. Like something about it just doesn't give me the
Oh, that's a
feeling
good
that
point. That's a good. It doesn't feel quite as deliberate. I agree with that.
Hmm.
I agree with that.
Well, I guess they're really looking for mostly arrangement comments. So, are there anything else that we can tell them about the arrangement?
I think I can't remember now, but the okay, yeah, there wasn't a second drop, right? Or was it the same as the first drop?
I guess it wasn't really a second.
I like drops that are different. That's just me, though. I know some people really like having the same drop, but I feel
Yeah,
like
even
in
a little
today's
bit.
age,
Yeah, I agree. I
you
totally
you need different drops for different sections of the song.
I agree. Yeah, I think changing that up as well. And like even like vocal chops and like having a section where it focuses more on the music instead of the vocals.
Yeah, don't be
Um,
afraid to break it down, you know?
exactly, exactly. It needs to have like a change up of texture. And sometimes you can like it can be really powerful to just go down to the vocals and the bass. I actually just did that with a track that I was working on last night with my friend. Like there was one point where I was like, let's just pull everything out and just have the vocal over the bass. So you can create some really good moments. And as Spatial Vibration just said in the chat, sometimes less is more. Absolutely.
And Cardona, if you're struggling with building up, like figuring out how to do that build up, like again, I'm gonna broken record reference tracks and like go find another track that you and copy that build up and learn how to make that build up effective for the transition that you're looking to do.
Yeah, totally. Shouts out to Rags who donated earlier. Oh, we didn't even do the things that he said. All right, so I have to sing a line from
forgot.
Broken Windows, and Natty has to freestyle. All right. Hold my breath and start to walk that unfamiliar way. Every moment of my life has built up to today. All right, Natty, go. Freestyle, little Natty. It's your
It's a
birthday.
shame it's gonna be a disappointment. Your brand new day is oh god, I can't. Why would you do this? I'm not gonna repair your broken windows because I don't give a damn about your feelings. I can't.
Nathaniel.
Why would you do this to me?
All right, let's just listen to Rags rap instead. How do we feel about that? Let's do that.
Fair.
was a lot of phasing and filtering. It certainly was.
Vibey.
Yeah, it's super vibey, but I got to, all I got to say is I got to agree with James a little bit that the phaser might be like the panning is really extreme. So like layering it and mixing it with the dry would be cool, or separating with reverb on top. Those are all good suggestions, and that's really all I would say because I think the emotion is really there. As Rag said, made it after a car accident, was in a different headspace, haven't made anything like it. I can feel that. I think you've done a really good job communicating the emotion because it's really like restrained and yet extremely emotional. So I really love the tension. And I would just, take a look at that phaser because I think it's also causing some really resonant spikes. So if you're going to phase extremely, you could also contain that with dynamic EQ, just an idea. We still need that animation. Stasis, what'd you think?
I really enjoyed it. I definitely could feel that kind of emotional aspect to it as well. I don't want to dive too much into the feedback, and I get like showing an old song. I do think like it is interesting because I've heard more of your recent stuff, Rags, and like there is I can tell this is a little bit older because it's not as glued together as some of your other stuff that I've heard. And that if I was going to give a note on it, that'd be the only thing. Is like there's some like the elements of the song sound a little too separated right now because I think it is because of the phasing and maybe some reverbs and stuff aren't like on the entire track or the other thing is I kind of want a vocal in it. And I was kind of, this is so funny, but the whole time I was like, no, like the levels aren't right in that mid range because that's where the voice goes, but there's no vocals on it. So, I mean, it's a cool track for sure.
Nice. Nathaniel, Grandpa.
Coming to a crossroad, don't think I'll ever recover. Taking so much damage, like I've been cursed by one another, like by another. Oh god, still can't freestyle. I'm sorry. I tried.
Hey, that
I
was
gave it my
better.
best
That
shot,
was
Rex.
better. That was
That was
better.
That was better. But I mean, that was the wording in my head was deliberate there as well because it definitely feels like a track where you're making a decision about something important. And in the reflection with your context of coming out the other side of a major accident, that makes a lot of sense. Psychologically, it definitely captures that headspace of something could have gone far worse than I imagined, but I still have a long way to go. And if you're going to try and recapture that headspace, because obviously, I mean, this is something actually, Isha, you can discuss right now. Working on your album of an old version of you wrote those songs. You are not the same person. How do you deal with that? Oh. It's obviously everyone's going to handle it differently, but I'm very interested to hear how, with all things you're learning right now, Isha, how would you recommend Rags maybe try something if he was going to finish this track?
Gosh, I mean, as I said, I asked you that same question because I was getting absolutely stuck trying to reconcile my old self with my new self. And I think you gave me the really good advice to sort of just reminded me about acting, which is actually something I did. It was my alternate universe life path. I was actually on my way to being like a musical theater stage actor. And then I decided to blow my audition and go party and rave instead. And I clearly made my decision that I wanted to be a DJ. I basically just you have to, it's twofold. It's kind of acting because you have to just like listen to what you did, put yourself back in that headspace, really like method acting is what they call it, like experience it and live it. And then also like, I think what you said is like, what else did you say? The journey, like celebrate the journey and the evolution of who you are now and kind of connect it all together. So for me, the biggest problem with old tunes is not even just like an emotional thing. It's also a technical thing, right? It's like I was using different plugins and I wasn't as good a producer, but I also don't want to completely sabotage the original vibe. So I'm actually having to finish my album in 2 different DAWs because I used to use Logic primarily for producing. And sometimes I've ported them over to Ableton and other times I'm trying to just make them work. And there is no simple answer, but I do think that I'll say that this is a mood worth going back to. And like, I think that especially because you haven't made other stuff like it, it might be a really interesting piece to access again. And yeah, the last piece of advice I would say is like you learn to kind of dramatize things that you experience to bring you back there. Like for instance, I don't feel as sad and depressed and broken up as I did before, but now if like something annoying happens, I take that feeling and I use it almost like as a miniature version to remind me of that place so that I could be like, God, I'm really annoyed that I've been on hold for blah, blah, blah for an hour. Maybe I'll go in and do a take and like sing that song about frustration that I've been wanting to record. So I think this is like the only way that people like Henry Rollins continue to like rage and act like they're angry, even though they're like seasoned musician, millionaire, comfortable suburban dads. Like you're going to change states hopefully for the good in your life as an artist, but it's still important to remember that raw emotional state that, in some ways really connects to people more than other things ever will, like solidarity through that. So abstract answer, complicated question.
I love that answer, by the way. I I think if you haven't come to, as a producer, if you haven't had a moment where you've opened up an old project and just totally face palmed and just been like, oh my gosh, I didn't even EQ that sample, or I didn't, whatever thing that you totally know how to do now and do on the regular. Like, if that moment hasn't come for you, just keep producing, and it inevitably will, 100%. And I went to a retreat, a songwriting retreat with Ben Folds a while back, and
Wow.
one of the yeah, super random, right? Not really my style of music, but there was an opportunity to go do that, and so I did. But um, so one of the exercises that he had us do was write, because this is more his whole thing is more like melody and lyrics and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of out of the realm of production, but he had us go back to a time when someone else was really like the exercise was go back to a time when someone else was really mad at you, and now write a song from their perspective as much as possible, and take your own shit and perspective out of it and just write it from theirs. And it was so hard, and so many people were so like struggle with that, but it was such an important, I think, thing that I learned of like, okay, if you want to get into this headspace of this other person, like practicing doing that, even if it's your past self or another individual or whatever, like practicing doing that can be really beneficial, whether you're writing lyrics or just creating a vibe, I think.
Totally. Oh, that's such a cool story. And I'm just going to follow this up with a ridiculous story about a not good songwriting camp that I was at. Actually, the camp was good, but we had a guest speaker who was not good. And this is the funny part. So he was this guy that just like walks in and he's just immediately like out of the 60s or 70s or 80s. Like he just seems like he's in the wrong decade and he's totally out of touch. So, like watching Mad Men when they like squeeze the secretary's butt, like this kind of like out of touch. And we're just like sitting here groaning because this guy is walking in and just kind of like, well, in the music business, when you sit down to write a song, and he's just like speaking from the era of payola and radio. And we're just waiting for him to be done with his brilliant monologue. And at one point he's like, let me show you an example of how you can just reach into your brain and take abstract concepts to create the perfect songwriting theme. And he sits there, with his thinking face on. And then he comes back and he goes, like lipstick jihad. And we all just looked at each other like, did he just say lipstick? He said lipstick jihad. At that point, everybody, I think, just tuned out, just noped out of that suggestive songwriting. So, pro tip: do not use lipstick jihad as a songwriting topic.
It sounds like an SNL sketch where,
Yeah.
how they come in and it's like, give me your best idea, and it's always this crazy random thing that makes no sense.
Yep, that's pretty much how that feels. Oh my god. So next up, who do we have? Who is the artist named Jam? I'm not sure. Jam am I?
It's Jam. They've been hanging out in the chat as homemade jam.
Okay.
The question is, what type of homemade jam? Is it strawberry, raspberry, rhubarb? Let us know.
I really like making
They are looking for compositional advice for keeping the song interesting over its full length. I think the chord stabs kind of drag on and do the same thing over and over again. I often find it difficult to think of stuff to add when I've got the initial ideas down.
Alrighty. Let's check it out. Intense. I love this vibe because I am an old school raver, straight up. But look at your sausage wave. It's so compressed that like it's actually kind of distorting even when I turn it down, which is telling me that it's not my interface, right? It's got a little bit of like over clipping, and it's a shame because like I love these kinds of jams. So I think that you just need to recalibrate your master, like maybe take it off and see, like mix without it. I don't know if you're mixing into a limiter or not, but it's kind of like slamming me in a way that is a little bit too much. Like it's making me not appreciate all the like delicate percussion riffs and everything because it's just like crunching to my face. How's it sound to you, Stasis?
It is chaotic.
Yeah.
I there were times where I was really vibing to it and times where it was a little bit tougher. But it's definitely an apricot jam.
Apricot. Oh.
Yeah.
That was what you were thinking about. Just what type of jam the song made you think he was.
Oh yeah, apricot jam for sure. Spread all over that toast. It's like not something you hear every day, not something you eat every day, but still delicious.
Wow, that's such a deep answer. I was not like prepared for how deep that answer was.
I'd say that's kind of perfect, isn't it? What type of jam? I don't know if apricot. Should we just? Is this gonna be our line of debate? The problem is that
you have a 30-second rebuttal.
It
Go.
feels like there's well, it's not that you're wrong about the flavor, but I feel like there are seeds of some kind that are scattered all the way through the jam. It's not a smooth jam, and the reason I think that is those vocal samples. Do you know what that sample. It's a really well known one. It pops up all over the place. It's the like just a really subtle vocal chop thing. It's like or whatever it is, you know. That it goes all the way through the
The
song.
bed squeak thing.
And yeah, it's a. I can't remember what it's called. Like I don't actually know. I know it's got like a name.
The bed squeak.
Is it actually a? Yeah, but it's not a bed squeak, is it?
Yeah, there's a bed squeak. I think it's a pretty big like future hyper pop sample. Anyways, if it's not, it's a squeaky sound.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, it's annoying having it go all the way through the entire track. So something's a little bit gritty about the jam.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that it's like one of those like multi-berry jams where you're like, I love berries, but like there's too many of them. And you're like, what kind of berry is this? And like, it's just this generic amorphous berry. Like berry is not a flavor. Berries have their own personalities. So I would say it's like a multi-berry, berry bonanza, like some crazy
Berry bonanza.
Paul Newman jam with like 16 kinds of berries in it.
I do think Heist Vibe is right. If it is apricot, it's definitely a marmalade and not a jam. There's definitely chunks of that apricot still left in the the spread. I would love to, maybe this is just me, but I would love a little bit more simplicity in the song and a little bit more structure. To like just be able to know if I'm listening, I like to be surprised, but at the same time know where the song is going to go next. And I didn't really get that from the song.
Yeah, it was a lot. I again, I love this style, but I think just like creating areas of space, like with this kind of like old jungly hard style vibe, you can have like a whole section that's almost entirely just breaks with a couple samples over talk, and people love that because it's like just get to ride it out. Like, why not? So it's a lot. Just take it back a little bit so that people can appreciate what you do have. Like, make them want it. They can't want it if you slam it in their face the whole time. So
you eat the cake. Eat the cake now.
It's the opposite of frigid.
It's the opposite of frigid. Yeah, you're just trying too hard. I don't know. The opposite of a frigid is a word that I won't say on this show. Anyways, next up we have spatial vibration. What kind of spatial vibrations can we expect, Nathaniel?
They just want general feedback, as far as I can tell. So whatever we have.
All right.
General.
The audience look. Okay, let's.
Yep.
Oh, audience.
Audience-ling.
Thinking really hard. All right.
Is it
And this stuff.
Is this love? I feel the magic. Can you feel it? Ooh, feel the fire. Can you feel it? I feel the burning in my heart. You and I. Ooh, feel the fire. set the world on fire. Is it us? We can set the world on fire. If there's love, we can set the world on fire. Is it us? We can set the world on fire. If there's love.
All right. Now, I don't know if this is really just the difference from Audius to SoundCloud, but man, I was like feeling that tub and like everything was so crisp and clear and heavy and like I think it's a good song too, but sometimes I really wonder like if the SoundCloud compression is even worse than we think it is, because I feel like an extra layer of depth to this, you know, and I feel like I always feel this way about Audius with stuff. So shout outs to Audius. I really, really like your ideas. I think I'm more crazy about the first half than the second half, like that kind of sort of drum and bassy part that came in. It felt like the drums weren't mixed as well, like that snare and that kind of rattly. I love the timbre of that, but I'm not sure if it works in the context of your arrangement. And I do also feel that there is something funny about the timing of the vocals with that second part. Like they come in and it's weird. I was like, are they out of time? They're not out of time. But the way that your bass is pulsing and the drum groove plus the vocals, I think there's enough clashing between those three things that it's making the vocals kind of not fit. So this is a really important tip that I give all the time that people don't really realize is like when someone records a vocal for you, if you're in a professional like top 40 commercial setting, you are going to put surgery on that vocal no matter how good it is. Like you're going to move single words over tiny bits. And that's something that I hear sort of like beginner vocal producers not necessarily do. Like somebody lays it down and they're like, okay, that's it. It's done. That's how it is. And it's like, hey, you know what? Like everybody has grooves, some people more than others. Sometimes you make a mistake. Sometimes I'm singing and I'm in a real good groove and then I just like hesitate and I have a thought and maybe the word just hits a little bit too far back. And you know what? I move it. I take that word and I move it like however many milliseconds. And tiny little moves like that are really part of what
Huge.
differentiates a professional song or professional track from an amateur one, because timing, it's like crazy when you move 10 milliseconds. It's not something that we can perceive on its own, but yet it can hugely change the groove of a track, right?
And that goes for any kind of recording. If you're recording a guitar, if you're recording a piano, if you're recording anything like that and your timing's off, it's gonna, like, you can't just quantize everything all the time and you can't just like leave it exactly how it is. And that includes samples that you pull out. If you got this sample from somebody, like, don't be afraid to like go in and manipulate the sample to try and tweak it to where it needs to get.
What'd you feel about the rest of the mix?
That song really tickled my vibe feelers. Like I was, I like that is like my kind of jam. So great work on the vibe and the anticipation, and I loved the transition to the like different ideas within the song. What I could say you could use a lot of work is just like the technicality on mixing the song together. So the arrangement, like A+ from me. There's a lot of sounds that don't quite work, that just aren't tuned in quite as well, or you might need to make some different choices on, like the breakbeat drums that you got going in the second part of the song. The second drop just didn't hit for me at all. That was the part of the song I liked the least. I felt like there was a really big disparity between like the ideas that you had in the first drop and the new drums that you put in, like, just did not mesh together for me. Also, the kind of snare buildup that you have right at the beginning, it's like the first measure of that threw me off so much because it just felt like so off. I really liked it later, but I think that if you have like a pattern where you're going to like remove or make like the snare build sound really different just as a stylistic choice, it doesn't have to be through the entire buildup of that snare. So I would maybe look at that, of making like the first two measures of that, or first two bars of that, more of a consistent buildup, and then like removing those snares that you did to kind of create that effect I really did like. It was just so, it threw me off so much at the beginning of that. There was also the because I really liked the synth choices at the very beginning of the song. When the first, I'm using my memory chips here, but the chord progression of the during the first drop of the bass did not sit well for me. It was like a 1-5-6, I think it was. It was something. It was just off, and I would just recommend a different bass line, because you don't have to change the bass too much to make it match up with that vocal, but just fiddle around with it and try and find the right fit. But I honestly, Spatial, I'm excited to hear more stuff from you. That was really cool.
Natty.
I don't really have anything useful to add to that. It's quite thorough feedback, and I feel like the one thing that needs to really highlight in this track, it needs a moment that's just the best moment of the track. Right now, there's no real clear climax that says, yes, this is amazing, I want to play this again. It just sort of does its thing and then stops doing its thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it'd look like, though, is the problem. And it's hard to advise on that front without trying to take over the entire process when that's obviously not there. And it just, it's so close, but like something, just one section of song needs to really, really, really stand out as amazing. And it's just
good point.
It's hard, tricky.
Yeah, and I think you could maybe achieve that if you said that this vocal was actually put together from like 8 to 10 samples or something. Like maybe you can re-chop one of those to really make a distinctive hook or something and pull that over and just like find a new focus. That could be a suggestion.
Oh, other VST I recommend. Little Altar Boy. Great VST for manipulating vocals, switching things up and just making things sound genuinely way different than they originally did. It also really helps to match keys. If you have a vocal sample that you're using that is not in line with your project, then you can use Little Altar Boy. And I mean, there's tons of other tools that do it, but I really like the functionality of Little Altar Boy.
Amazing. It's cool. Well, next up we have someone who, judging by his artist name, is clearly like a prince of a country I've never heard of. Daniel Magnus d'Arc, the 15th Lord Earl Duke of some kind of extremely exotic locale. I'm
Descended from a holy warrior.
Yes. And what's up with Daniel? Welcome to the show. I love your name. I'm saying this because I think it's amazing. I'm jealous. I want a name like that.
They've given us no specific feedback.
We don't know what to do without your guidance. All right.
We'll find something for you, Magnus.
All right. Let's try that again. I'm going to do that because SoundCloud just went nuts. like a synthwave jam right now. That was perfect vibes.
It's lovely.
I love the composition. I love that little change up that you put in. I only have like two things to say. One of them is like a small thing. Ooh, this tempo change at the end. Fun. One of them is a small thing, like something that can help with movement a lot in tracks. Very simple trick. Is just a really short reverse sweep that sweeps into the snare. That's like very low and like you wouldn't notice it. But that way, instead of just going duh, you go duh. Like you kind of slide in and it can kind of just like, it can keep the momentum going. So I would suggest that maybe for like just the second part of your song there. Like there's a couple of spaces where I think just having a little subtle push into the snare with like something like that would be really fun. And then the other thing is evenness in a mix down. So check this out. Like when all your stuff hits, it feels pretty great to me. Like everything is balanced, the bass is warm, everything like is sitting in a good place. However, all parts of your mix down need to sound complete. And this is like, I think this is a casualty of all the like sharp curve EQing that people do, because it's like you EQ stuff so insanely that it fits together perfectly when everything is in there, but then when you take things out, like say a part without the bass, suddenly it can sound empty. So like I know when your track first came in the intro, the mix down didn't sound as good as it did when it dropped. And so there's things that people forget to do, I think, and sometimes like you can automate EQs. So like for instance, if you're really heavily low cutting something because of the bass, maybe if like that synth is playing in the intro, you back off on the low cut to give it a little bit of low frequency back when the bass isn't in there. Because even though obviously you want dynamics, like you don't need the bass to be in every part, you don't want to like kind of shock the audience by like suddenly completely removing it or removing it completely at the beginning. You need to sort of ease people in and still create a complete spectrum even when not all the elements are there. So I would just kind of go back to like your breakdowns and these other parts, because I feel like there's frequencies missing in them, and my ear is just like and there are moments in these tracks like this where I'll sort of check my sub pack and be like, oh, did I bump the chord? Did it fall out? Because the frequency disappeared. Right. And so I think that's the one nitpick I would have overall is just that like your drop parts are super, super tight. Now you have to sort of like work backwards away from them and try and keep an even balance in the other parts, if that makes sense. If you know what I mean, Stasis?
Yeah, I would agree. I love me some synthwave. And I haven't done a ton of synthwave. We have one song on the Spatter album called Necessary Parasite, which is one of my favorite songs that we did, but I had to learn a lot of stuff to kind of get that synthwave sound right. And there's a couple of things that I would recommend here. So one is I don't know. It sounded like your bass is all just one synth, and I would recommend breaking it into a sub bass synth and a mid-range bass and splitting those up. I would love a little bit more sub content. And so I think that might be like merging those two things together might be a little bit more helpful, because I mean the synthwave vibe for me is like that driving bass line, and it was kind of lacking, just in my opinion. The transitions are also a little abrupt, so sometimes like having the tempo changes or having like the fills come in, like the toms, those have to be like really on point to get that vibe, in my opinion. Like if you want to have that like kind of nostalgia synthwave thing going on, then those have to be just like perfectly placed, and that could use a little bit of work. I really liked the song though, like a very, very cool vibe. One last thing is one of the things that really helped me was adding just the tiniest bit of swing on the hi-hats. And I would recommend maybe doing that here, because that can liven up the sound of something like this style is so structured, and adding a little bit of aliveness can help a lot with that. And I do want to echo what Isha said about the kind of the spatial stuff, making sure that everything is under the same umbrella, making sure that everything feels like it aligns. Because it does feel like that, except in like certain parts where it's like, oh, that doesn't feel like it was like meshed in frequency wise with the rest of the mix.
And And now we have our resident synthwave expert, Nathaniel Wyvern. What's your hot take?
The thing is, some of your track, what appears to be bad mixdown, is actually more like slightly off sound design. That lower bass element that comes in occasionally it's meant to be the driving bass, but your release time is so long that what you're doing is actually causing your notes to bleed into each other.
Good point. Mm-hmm.
The other thing as well, if you look at acts that are on more, well, a little bit more mainstream synthwave adjacent labels, things like Monster Cat, folks like Pilot, they are very, very reliant on parallel processing and parallel compression to make things like really, really pumpy and crispy and full. And so what you're really going to have to start doing from here is taking each type of sound. So you got your lead, your bass, your drums, and whatever miscellaneous percussion and pads you've got going on, and create a bus for each of them that's your wet bus and another for your dry bus, and then create effects on them in a unified manner that then you can switch between a little bit as the track progresses, to take advantage of the fact that sometimes you'll want one aspect more full than the other aspects. But it's also kind of old school in its own way, because the synthwave is trying to be like the 80s music that they wanted to exist that didn't exist. But it means as well that a lot of the producers that founded the genre still looked back at those old production techniques where they were running tape reel into tape reel into tape reel. It wasn't just one input, it was a whole series of inputs before you got the final product.
Right.
And you kind of need to replicate that in your DAW to capture the same energy. And it's easier. So luckily for us, it's way easier.
Yes. Yeah, producers are so lazy these days. We don't have to cut tape reels. We don't have to sit there and press record and just like drink our coffee and wait. Like, gosh, what do we even do?
Spent all our time outside angsting.
Oh, lame. All right, we got Heist Doer. I know you've been patiently waiting, Heist Doer. What is the feedback specifically wanted?
This track is my first attempt to incorporate vocal samples, which is why the voice varies a bit. Interested in any feedback or criticism that you have?
Well, first of all, I would say stop sending us MP3s. Please send waves at least, because, yeah, I was just saying about SoundCloud compression. Like, people say you can't hear it, but, why downgrade when you don't have to? We love wave files. Anyways, let's check it out.
Check this out. Here we go. You got me like, I like it. You got me like, I like it. Check this out. One more time. Bring it back now. You got me like, I like it. You got me like, I like it. You got me like.
It's definitely a first attempt at adding vocals to a track, and I say it's obvious because it sounds like you made the instrumental first and then tried to slap a vocal sample on it and hoped it worked. My best advice here, because I don't think that the vocal sample actually matches what you're trying to do with the rest of the track, is actually maybe if you like that vocal sample, actually just start with the vocal samples and maybe put a very basic beat underneath of them, just either a 4 on the floor or a 2-step or whatever, and start moving those vocals around and chopping them up and seeing what interesting effects you can get. Treat them as an element worth manipulating and composing with in their own right. And then build everything else around them. Because right now it's like you got this cool beat and, work in progress stuff aside, it is quite classy and swaggery, and I like it.
It's
But
heisty.
it doesn't. Yeah, it's heisty, which is always a nice heist vibe. But yeah, it's just the vocal. It doesn't really add anything in terms of lyrics. It doesn't add anything to the vibe, and in terms of processing, because of how busy everything else is, you're just making a massive headache for yourself, especially when you're trying to learn how to use vocals.
Yeah, I think you could do a lot with like chopping them up and not just like vocal chops. I mean, chopping them up using filters like gate effects, things like that. Because I think what you have going on vibe wise is you've got a lot of things that are kind of like triggering on eighth notes. Like your melodies are all triggering on kind of eighth notes. There's not a ton of syncopation. And I would like a little more. And one way that you can do that is like, even if you have a pattern that's on an eighth note, you can put a filter, like a gated filter or something on top of it that has a different timing. And this will give you like polyrhythms, which are really, really cool. They come from syncopating different rhythmic patterns over top of each other. So I would really encourage you, if you can, to experiment with some sort of plugins. I really love Rift. I can't say enough great things about it. I also vaguely know the guy who made it. It's a small company, so I love supporting small plugin companies. But just really like texturizing with rhythmic based plugins to give my ears a little bit more to play with than just like right? Stasis, what would you do? Googly eye.
I think it's so fun to sit down and just like play and make a song, like you're playing on your keyboard or you're programming in the DAW and you create something, but I cannot stress enough how important it is to take a day every once in a while and just like experiment with a particular plugin or with a particular thing you're trying to do. If you want to make a snare sound better, instead of just like finding that snare sample, like make a snare, or if you're wanting to learn how to do vocals a little more, like put some vocals in and scour your DAW. Any DAW you have is going to have stock plugins that you're going to be able to do some crazy things with if you just experiment and play around with it. And so, and also what Isha said earlier about the, like pro studios and stuff are going to spend so much time on aligning their vocals to be not only pitch correct but also timing correct. Like that is definitely something I would suggest on this track. Is like if your focus is making the vocals like the key or making them add, then you want to make sure that they really add and not just like, oh, it sounds different than it did before I put the vocal in. Because I've definitely been guilty of that. So just keep producing, keep practicing, experiment, learn. That's all. That's this whole game is just more practice.
It is so much practice. Oh my God. We are winding down. We have a couple left. Thanks so much, Stasis, for jumping on today. It's always great to have you. Thanks
Always
as
a
always.
pleasure.
Thanks as always to Natty for just being the cuddliest, cutest grandpa from 1812 Scotland /
The best veteran of the War of 1812.
Natty, I miss Lego Natty. Where's Lego Natty?
Lego Natty is, I think last time I saw him, he was on the...
We made Lego versions of ourselves last time we were together. So I'll show you.
Here you go.
This is Lego Isha
Nice.
with the guitar.
I'll send that somewhere and...
Yeah. Anyways,
Lego Natty, go.
Go, Natty, go. We got a couple left. We got Hard Shifters and then Alfie. And so Hard Shifters said, I'm looking for the quality of the track. Is the mix and master done properly?
Sorry, you missed one.
Oh, I missed
You missed one.
Who did I miss?
Your work on...
Oh, Bingbo.
Bing
I'm
Bong.
so sorry. Right. How did I miss that? Oh, I think I was scrolled up. Okay, Hard Shifters is after Bingbo. What did Bingbo say?
Then trying to make ambient stuff that sounds like it belongs in a video game.
Okay.
He liked the googly eye settings, so I'll have to go back to that.
All right. All right.
You need anime eyes.
I know I don't have anime eyes. That'd be amazing.
So, I think you've definitely made a video game atmosphere to answer your question. Definitely. Like I said, reminds me of the water level in Donkey Kong. Stasis, you're killing me with your Twitter. Yeah, the question was how to make it more atmospheric and ambient. This is where I cannot say enough about Foley. It doesn't have to be like the ocean or the forest. Like, you don't have to use like the catalog of a white noise machine, okay? There are so many beautiful sounds in nature, and just the natural texture and the imperfection of it can give more ambience, because that's the thing is, like, I love synthesizers. I am the most like VST digital in the box loving person that you will meet, but organic textures, they do have something that you just can't really replicate in the same way with computers, and that just the suggestion of one can open up your world and tell a really subtle story. So yeah, I mean, another thing that I do is a voiceover actor, so if you want to go there, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and begin counting
Here we go with the ASMR.
backwards from 3, because we're EDM producers and that's all we can count to. 3, 2, 1. Don't expect the drop. There is no drop. There will be no drop. Now open your eyes.
We should have. There needs to be a song of like that says "Don't expect the drop." There is no drop.
The drop was inside you all the time.
Drop was inside. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I'm crying.
Bing Bong, I freaking loved that. I am a huge soundtrack and video game and ambient fan. I play a lot of D&D, and so I like to being a freaking music nerd, I like to soundtrack everything. So I loved it. I couldn't agree more with the Folly. I make a lot of, I don't release any of this stuff. It's just for my friends and family that play Dungeons and Dragons with me. But I make my own soundtrack stuff, and I always try to imagine like, oh, this is the setting, there's this kind of thing going on, or this is the kind of thing when I close my eyes and imagine, what this sounds like or what this feels like. Where am I? And adding that Foley in is a huge step into making it more immersive and creating like that you hear something subtly, and it's a scary song and you hear some chains dragging in the background or something, and then that evokes all this imagery and sensations that wouldn't normally otherwise. So yeah, like I would definitely, that's the number one route I would go. The nice thing about making soundtrack and D&D type stuff is it doesn't have to be, I mean, for me, it doesn't have to be great. You're competing with things like the original Final Fantasy VII soundtrack and stuff, so the sound quality doesn't have to be incredible, and you can get away with a lot of things that you normally wouldn't be able to get away with. But I think that that you've got some really cool vibes here. Definitely evoking some imagery for me. Oh, Alfie, you have beautiful eyes.
Well.
Thank you.
There's so much love tonight.
So
I
much
mean, and I keep saying I really do need a swear jar for it. The my feedback for this is, well, Stasis, you're right in the sense of competing with random generic soundtrack from whatever other game you feel like, kind of thing. There's still obviously if you really enjoy making this stuff, I expect Bingbo likely still holds himself to somewhat of a high regard and wants to excel at this. My recommendations to make this track level up even further is, one, it's fairly lengthy, but could actually be longer. And hear me out. You just have to add more sub, drifting to a beat occasionally, like something sort of, don't use a really hard kick, use a sort of a soft and wide, like bass drum kind of kick, sort of kick. And so it's like, you want me go a little bit more slightly industrial, so it's like a boom, 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 boom. And then to add things to like Foley, honestly, you want maybe some slight chants, some breathing, like, why not? Let's go full meditation with it. So like, just in time with the beat, occasionally, in certain sections. And Alfie calls them slutty industrial songs. Okay. Bing Bong, your drums also don't have to be drummed. They could be anything. It's just what matters is that they have a softer transient and a longer tail. And so you still get that sense of a beat, but it's dispersing throughout your space.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the cheat code to adding percussion to ambient. It's reducing the transient in your percussion and your drum work.
And also, you don't have to do good drums in ambience. Like, you just need to find a couple samples that fit and vibe well and use them sparingly. But you can get a lot of mileage out of one additional sample in an ambient song.
True. True that. Wicked. It's the first time I've said that, unlike Nathaniel and his expressions. I said that so much during the finals that I was like, okay, you're cut off. You're banned from saying that. And then I somehow absorbed Natty's personality, and now I just say I mean all the time.
I've been trying to ban myself from saying it, and I can't stop. I feel really self-conscious about it.
Well, I mean, at least it's not like a horribly offensive thing. Like, you could have Tourette's and just not be able to stop yourself from saying poopy bum all the time. That would be a lot more awkward than hard shifters. We got a couple of things next. What's the comment on this one?
I'm looking for the quality of the track. Is the mix and master properly done, or is this something I can chance or improve on? Change or improve on, I expect that was meant to say.
Natty's getting tired. I can hear it.
No, he actually made a typo. He said chance or improve on. That was his fault.
Yep.
Hey bitch, you thought I wouldn't find out? All the shit you was talking about. Better run when you hear that. Better run when you hear that. I said, hey bitch, you thought I wouldn't find out. All the shit you was talking about. Better run when you hear that. Better run when you hear that. You thought I wouldn't find out all the shit you was talking about. Better run when you hear that. Better run when you hear that. I said, hey bitch, you thought I wouldn't find out all the shit you was talking about. Better run when you hear that. Better run when you hear that.
For that last bit, I just keep seeing Will Ferrell doing the Blue Oyster Cult Saturday Night Live skit, like doing the cowbell. But
I got a fever, and
Oh,
the
yeah, I know
cure
the one.
is
Yes.
more cowbell.
yeah, I mean, I gotta say though, I people know that I do not like this style of music, but I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I think like you have a lot of factors that are just like genre transcending. Like the mix down is like pretty pleasing. Like even though you have a lot of distortion, you've got clear low end, and it's not like overdriven to the point that it's distorting in a distorting way. It's so funny. It's like you don't want fish to smell fishy. You don't want distortion to make your mix down sound distorted. And you think you did a really great job with that. I love the little like track.
That is a great analogy, by the way. That's an amazing analogy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really tough to get that balance, and like especially in a style like this, it's just so intense that little missteps become bigger missteps because there's less room for error. I think so. I mean, smooth distortion. You've really got that down. So I do think there were a couple of uneven moments in the mix down that could be evened out. Just little tiny things, just like certain sections having a little bit more energy than others. But these are like nitpicking because honestly, I thought that was a lot of fun. And yeah, Stasis, what do you think?
I really liked it. Sorry, I do a terrible Christopher Walken. But I enjoyed that more so than I usually enjoy hardstyle. So good work there. I'm gonna give you some feedback that Nathaniel gave me a while back, and that is don't overuse your samples. And that is a really it's really helpful. I think it's really easy to get tired of the same sample over and over again. And otherwise, I liked it. I wish I had more feedback on it, but this is like not my genre, all I can say is that I enjoyed it and it was a good track. It had me vibing.
Nathaniel, you're our resident hardstyle expert. That's what I wanted. I was aiming for that laugh and I got it.
Yeah, of course. I live for the donk and nothing but the donk.
Nothing but the donk.
I don't listen to a huge amount of hardstyle, but I can appreciate euphoric melodies like the one you have here as your main hook. It's a really catchy hook. Your super saws are spot on, and it's just a fun vibe. Hence why I had to flex my setup and do the like student at the nightclub taking a shitty TikTok video effect.
I loved it. I loved that's why I like turned all my effects on at once. I was like, this is too good. Hey, if you made Nathaniel party, that is a good sign. So
Yeah.
It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
I think we're all telling you that we all have kind of no idea what we're talking about with the style, but we enjoyed it. And in the end, like what matters, like the genre, like sour dudes at the back being like, or the people who have no clue that are like, yeah, like Nathaniel. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I ruined it with my bad Christopher Walken impersonation. I'll try to think of a impersonation I can do that can be a little more satisfying.
Look, I'm just
What was
like
your
you.
face
I can make a good Mr. Poopy Butthole, so I can yell like Christopher, Justin Roiland, and stutter sometimes.
I'm a little bit terrified, not gonna lie.
Oh my God. Yeah. Hey, look, I'm just like you. I put my pants on one leg at a time. But after I put my pants on, I make gold records. It's like a little bit better than yours, not by much, but
No, it's good. It was much better. I do like the Modern Family joke. You can put your clothes in me, Christopher Walken closet.
oh. All right. Thanks for everybody tuning in and sending us such dope tunes as usual. We're going to close with one of our regulars, Alfie. We love you. We got to get you in there. What's Alfie doing today, Natty?
This is from his album. It's brand new, and I can't remember if he said anything. It's been the sound and vibe of the album has been inspired by 2 different rejections.
Oh.
So that's the feedback.
This is just
Yeah.
All right.
Vibe.
Ooh.
Wow, Alfie, you
Great
always
track.
blow me away with like your diversity. Like I've heard so many different styles. Stasis, yeah, I'll let you comment first on this one.
Yeah, I have some very nitpicky notes, but this is a great track. It's super vibing. Definitely got that vibe you were talking about. That's why I threw up the cracking heart here. But um, so a couple things specifically with the vocals. The I would try to create some more space for those vocals in that mix. They get a little muddied. And I think that the reverb is a little too forceful, and I think it's I think it's a little too wet for my taste. So I would increase the delay time on the reverb, and then turn it down a little bit, make it a little drier, and then. Isha was the one who introduced TDR Nova to me, and I would use TDR Nova or a similar plugin to sidechain EQ the space that the vocals are sitting so that they can have more room to breathe and stand out a little bit more from the mix. Oh, the reverb is intentional to make it sound like a venue or a club. I would definitely then yeah, like dive into it. Then it feels almost like you're sitting on the fence a little too much. If that's the case, make it a lot more intentional. If is what I would do, so that it feels very intentional as opposed to feeling like it's a slight mastering issue, you know. But I would also really like to hear like a like a drier version of the song. I would like it would be cool to have both available if you when you release it or if it's already out or whatever. But it would be cool to have like a drier version of that vocal just because it's a great sounding vibe. But I really, really enjoyed it. Good track.
Nice. Natty?
I've been told to make sure we give a shout out to the vocalist. It's not Alfie on the vocals. It's a dude called Yehon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But I mean, I find it's actually quite good that you're working with other people. Like that's one really good way to actually build up experience and actually change. Continue evolving. I think it's a good sign for your adaptability and your flexibility that you're able to make something like that work. And it doesn't sound out of place. Like everything actually sounds pretty good in terms of arrangement, which is hard to do, with other people because everyone's got their own way of doing things.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think the collaboration is the best way to grow as an artist, and I definitely hear that other influence with your own kind of style. I like that you try to sort of emulate these spaces in your storytelling, and I think just to build on what Stasis said, like you can lean harder on the reverb and then just mix in a dry layer that just has like sibilance and consonants and bits like that, and just sort of like give that shape back and allow the listener to like hear the lyrics clearly but still have the drowned in reverb thing. And I think I've given you this like same feedback for a different track before. It's like you can totally go and lean into that type of storytelling, but you have to like add a little bit back in so that people can still hear the lyrics or not lose them, but you have the effect. You can have your studio cake and eat it too in ways like that. So yeah, and Alfie says that
We should make a studio cake.
I bet it's
Can
good.
it have a
Maybe it should
big
be a
ear and
stream.
a piece of candy on it?
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Like just a
hungry.
giant ear.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stasis. Thanks, Natty. Right now, we've been doing this every 2 weeks. I think it's good for now. In the new year, we might change the format, but hope you enjoyed. If you just tuned in, we did some cool stuff about rooms and treating them earlier, and we're here at least every couple of weeks. We've got more events planned, so subscribe if you haven't already. And you know what time it is, Nathaniel and Stasis. It's time for good